Welcome, friends, to the first unit of personal finance. This is planning personal finances, and I'm going to do a screen recording for you. Hope you'll enjoy this video. Maybe it will help you through the lessons along as you read your book. Planning personal finances, what I would like to do is do a very short review of just the basics of business. Many students who have taken this class or are taking it for the first time have never taken a business course, and that's perfectly fine. But, how does the business world really affect our personal finances? Well, it tremendously would be the best answer. We are the United States economy, the largest economy in the world, at least at the time of this video, and we're in the mid-2020s. So how does our system work? We are a free market economic system. There's different laws. There's the law of thermodynamics. Okay, the first law of thermodynamics is that energy cannot be created or destroyed, it can only change forms. Well, if we were to get a law in the world of free market, we would say supply and demand. Demand is what we like to do. We like to buy. And in the United States economy, we buy a lot of things. About 60 to 70% of the nation's gross domestic product, which is about $25 to $26 trillion per year, 60 to 70% of that is what we do on our off time. It's our spending. It's consumer. So we demand a lot. That affects the price. The supply can too. The supply is, if you're a business person, you have your own business, how much do you produce? How many tacos should we make for the day? How many lawns, how much landscaping services can I provide for the demand? So the supply is on the basically the seller's behavior, the business behavior. Demand is on the buyer's behavior. That's quick. That's pretty simple. We have business cycles in a free market economy. And what they do, just like we have a life cycle, we always have business cycles. It kind of looks like that old sine or cosine graph of trigonometry, and basically peak. Peak is great. When the United States economy is peaking, we have a positive growth in that gross domestic product. Now we need somewhere between 3 to 4% on an annual growth rate. That says that we're peaking. Well, what if we don't get that? Then we would say the economy is contracting or recessing, which is a recession. So if we have two negative growth 3-month periods, we utilize our fiscal year into quarters. So there's 4 quarters in a year. So if 2 quarters in a row have negative growth, which means we're growing much less than 3%. We've gone from 3 to 2 to 1. We'd say that's a recession. At some point, there's got to be a trough. Now, if we remember the early aughts, we hit a rather nasty recession from between 2007, 8, 9, 10, 11. We thought the trough, which was the bottom, it couldn't get any worse, and it was pretty bad. Stock market went from 17,000 points down to 6,000 points. Yikes, that's losing much less than 50%, I should say much more than 50% of its value. So it was tough times. We thought about May of 2011 was the bottom point. Then we started to recover. Recovery means the economy is growing again, and it's all predicated on the gross domestic product, which is everything that is produced and consumed within the continental United States, as well as Hawaii and Alaska. If we were to go to look at our gross national product, that's an economic term for all the world of companies that are doing business all over the world, and they have maybe headquarters over there too. We're just looking within the United States. The economy is growing again. So there we go, peak. Yes, it gets hot. We do well. Then all of a sudden it starts to cool off. And then it may cool off too much. Maybe we'll go down to a recession, maybe to the trough. And then we start recovering again. If it got really, really bad, we would be in a depression. And the depression, last time we saw that was in the 1930s, the Great Depression. I just don't think a politician would ever say we were in a depression. Perhaps as history goes on, in another 20 years, maybe in 2050, people would look back at the 2007 to 2011 recession, and maybe even call that a depression. But hey, and nobody's getting elected then, at least for those years. So how do we measure economic performance? All right, we are now looking at our finances. We want to know, how well are things going? We have economic indicators. We have housing starts, okay? And I believe this is one of the questions that we have in our wonderful assignments and projects. Hey, if housing starts are going up, well, think of the housing industry. That's a lot of people in work. You have construction, you have a lot of materials, you have home. I mean, you look at Home Depot, from Pottery Barn to Home Depot to Lowe's. You buy that first house, and that's my prayer for each one here. If you're young and you're striking this class and you're just starting your college career, I sure hope you do get a house, because it's a wonderful thing to have. And you buy a lot of stuff, and from interior decorating to landscape services, all sorts of stuff. So housing starts are a huge part of the United States economy, because it's that multiplier effect that's so huge. Durable goods orders, big stuff. You buy a new refrigerator, you buy a car, but things that are going to last more than a year. Capital spending. Capital spending is what businesses, all right, it's what they spend, and if there's strong capital spending, let's hope that there is need for human resources and for jobs, really good jobs. So when all those numbers over several months increase, our economy is either headed for recovery or we're staying in a peak performance. Obviously, if they're going down, then we would say a recession is coming in, and both of these play huge parts of our finances, because it's not always peaking, my friends. We always have to plan and be aware of recessionary times as well as the good times. Inflation. Now, inflation is something we are now in the middle 2020s, and inflation is really creeping away. The best way to describe inflation, I could give you the economic definition. It's a steady rise in the prices of goods and services throughout the economy. What many economists back in old school days, in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, would simply say, inflation is a hidden tax. It's just a different way that the government has spent money, and it's usually too much money has gone into the economy, which means prices are rising. Deflation is a sustained level, falling prices. Now that sounds good. I like it. I mean, I like a good low price, as anybody else does. But we're talking over a long period of time here. We're talking over several quarters. When we see deflation, and the last time we really saw the measurement of deflation was in the Great Depression, that's a tough call, because nothing is growing. Jobs don't grow, people don't get raises, etc., etc. The Federal Reserve, which controls the money supply of the United States as well as the entire world, will always opt for inflation, because it signals that things are growing. It's a false way to do it, but that's what they want to do. Stagflation is very, very bad. Something we saw in the 1970s, nobody will ever want to admit to again. It is when you have a recession and inflation. So all of a sudden, and you could argue, we have seen that throughout this new millennia for the last 20 some odd years, and going into 30 years now, that people haven't had tremendous increases in income, and prices have risen dramatically. That just cuts our spending power, and that is huge on our personal finances. Now, the government has been reporting 2 to 3% for the first 20 years. I mean, actually, since the 90s, there was some fabrication of how we measure inflation. But these last few years, we've seen 9 to 10% that they've actually admitted to. But hey, you and I know there's a lot more than that. If you're buying groceries, if you're buying food and clothes, we've seen 30, 40% increases. And again, inflation is very, very difficult on our personal finances. If I were to say, well, okay, what is it again? Inflation basically means there's too much money floating in the economy. I'm going to give you a quick example that was explained to me by a money and banking professor many years ago. Let's say we all live on this island. Let's say that's Nicole Kidman's island, and I think it is actually. There's our dock to it, but that's it. We all live on it. There's our nice little bungalows, and we need a common, ordinary good swap item. That's called money. We're going to use these beautiful shells as our money. I run a store. It's in the back here, kind of in the middle of the island. And what happens is, there we go. I take your shells. You go out and you dive in the lagoon, all right, and you buy, and you know, they're only about 4 or 5 feet deep. You get some shells. You bring them up during the week. I sell you a broom for 2. A hammock is 4 shells, a table's 8 shells, food's 3 shells, food for a day, and a fishing net. Oh, life is just fantastic and perfect. Well, what happened was one night a mini tsunami, we don't want to call it a tsunami, but a big wave came up and it brushed all the shells right on the beach. You didn't even have to go dive for them. Well, you take those shells and you come right in to my store. And you say, hey, you know what? I need a couple of brooms, a hammock. I'll take another table and 3 day supply of food. Well, you're buying me out. And I'm thinking, wow, you did some good diving today. Well, you ran out and didn't tell me what happened. More people come in, and finally, a person named Lisa came in, and I said, Lisa, wow, what's happening out there? She said, didn't you know? There was must have been a wave of some sort. All these shells just came right up on the beach. What am I going to do? Okay, Lisa, just hold on. Broom, 4 shells. Ham. She was very honest, and I thank you. But I gotta adjust my prices. 8 shells, 16. I may just double them right off the bat. It equalizes out. Now you have enough shell. Okay. Well, 30 days goes by. Another wave comes up, and I see all these shells because I see everybody running to the beach. So now, what have I done? I've increased in. I doubled them. I may double the prices again. What happened in our nice, perfect little equation here was there were just too many shells flowing around, and I didn't have enough product. I just sold out, so I had to adjust my prices. Think of inflation as that. That's the best way to describe it. There's been too much money flown or put into the economy, and that inflation really hurts it. Well, what would bring inflation down? Well, we had all those shells up here, but in the meantime, when that wave went back, now, as a couple of months go by, maybe 2 more months, all those shells are now in 20 feet of water. They were in, 3 to 4 feet. So now it takes everything that you have to dive and get those shells. You may only get 2 shells a day. Once I see that, well, no one's buying my product, all of a sudden, I put the shells to a boat, and new product comes in. That's how I exchange to get the product there from another boat, from those shells. All of a sudden, I'll probably have to start lowering my prices because now we put a little bit of a decrease, actually a pretty big decrease of money, and things equaled out. I hope that makes sense. Since 2021, just in COVID alone, the United States put out $5 trillion into the economy. That came in grants, that came into free money, it came into a lot of different things. That's a lot of money to absorb in the economy. We have given at least 500, I think on record we've given 500 billion to Ukraine. It's probably been more than that, to Israel, to a lot of different countries. And you can just go on and on and on. Right now, my friends, as we start this class, in the years that we have just seen since COVID, we have been adding $1 trillion to the national debt every 10 weeks. So every 2.5 months, we are borrowing another $1 trillion. What are we doing with it? We're spending money. Yikes. That is a lot for the economy to absorb. Well, how would, and that's why we have seen inflation at very, very high rates. Wow, when inflation gets high, it's hard to afford labor costs. It's hard to afford food costs, especially if you're a restaurant. How would we solve this? Well, there's only one way we've ever solved it in the United States, and we can go back since our history, and certainly since the 1900s, like 1900. The only way to do that is to decrease the money supply. So how does that happen? You have to raise interest rates. So the Federal Reserve has to raise interest rates, which causes a lot of repercussions in the economy, which means your credit card interest goes up. The car that you want to buy, which was now at 3% a few years ago, is at 6 to 8 to 10%. Your housing, your mortgage, which was again another 2.99%. If you had great credit, now you're at 8 to 10%. That does a huge amount. I'm gonna say that word again, huge. A lot in this class. It makes your payment much more. I mean, you all of a sudden you could be paying another $800-900 a month in a payment based on the interest rate. So you might be at a $2,800 a month house note versus you could have been at a $1,900 a month house note, or even less than that. So these are some of the problems. If you're seeing high inflation, you're kind of going, "What's going on here?" Well, that's what we've been doing since literally 2020. It's been tough. It's been tough. So that gives us a little bit of a background, my friends, of the national economy and how it kind of works and what's that word inflation and how we've gotten to this point. Well, who works hard for the money? All right, we all do. And of course, we would love to make more money. It would be wonderful if the boss came in and she said, "Hey, you know what? You're doing such a great job. I want to give you an extra $25,000, $50,000 a year." Well, if you get that, God bless you. That's fantastic. Good for you. But most of us don't get that. But we could manage our money probably better. I hopefully think so. And we know, just as we've been talking, it is very expensive to live. So this class, as I've said before, it's all about you and money. If I was to ask you how many hours there were in a month, well, there'd be 722 hours, 168 hours per week. The one thing that is equitable in this life, and there's not many things that are, is time, which means we all have the same amount of time, theoretically speaking. What we do with it is our choice. If I was to ask how much of that's planning our personal finances, do we all know our bank account balances, IRA, retirement balance, credit card balances, car loans, home loans, when things are due? If you do, great. Most people don't. Do we know our net worth? Net worth is the general accounting equation. We can make it very personal. Owner's equity equals assets minus liabilities. Well, your net worth is your equity, and it's assets minus liabilities. It's what you own minus what you owe. That's our net worth. 70% of Americans, and this has been done, lots of research has been done on this for the past 25, 30 years, spend about 20 minutes a month. That's kind of opening bills, quickly paying them, and that's it, and not planning it. So the good news here is we can do better, can't we? We have a lot of room for improvement. The distribution of wealth in the United States is unequitable. Now, we all have equity in time, but we certainly don't have equity in wealth. Right now, if the percentages will always have been remaining this way, again, probably since the Clinton administration. That's when we really saw some things happening. Then when W. Bush opened up a lot of tax brackets, we saw these numbers very increased. But 1%, which you've heard about probably, the top 1%, they control 40% of the wealth. They're somewhere between 55, 60, maybe $70 trillion worth of private wealth in the United States. Homes, retirement, investment accounts. Top 1% own 40% of that. The top next 4% own 21% of that. And the next 5% own 10%, which basically means the top 10% of Americans control 71% of wealth, somewhere between 43, and if these numbers may have gone up, between 43 and $50 trillion. Well, we're looking at percentages, and to get 100, that means there's only 29% left. And you can see these numbers, my friends, it's an eye-opener here, isn't it? They go down, 12, 12, 4. This is a very, very scary number, and at least it is to me. That means almost half of the United States owns absolutely nothing. No wealth, nothing. I don't know how long and how sustainable this is. Well, if you are, let's just say there's 100 million families. That makes my math easier. There's about 350 million people in the United States that are that we know of, or that basically have filled out tax returns, et cetera, et cetera. We're going to say about 4 million families, 100 million families out of that. Top 5 of that control 60% of the wealth. That's 36 trillion. Again, the top 1 control just so. To get in that number, to get in this 1%, your net worth would have to be 40 million and above. The top 150 people in the United States are billionaires. The next 4%, to get, basically now we're talking about in that top 5%, you'd have to have somewhere around 20 million. If you had $20 million worth of net worth, well, what do you have access to? A lot. You have power. Okay, you tell the government what to do. You have a lot of influence, and of course, wealth begets more wealth. You have opportunities. I think this is a Bugatti right there. That's a couple $1 million car. Yeah, there you are. You're on some of the wealthiest areas. These good-looking people right here, all these heartbreakers, are very wealthy people, aren't they? There's Jeff McKinsey. Oops, whoosh, they got divorced. Bezos. There's Elon, and there's Bill. 1, 2, 3, 4. We haven't even looked at Melinda. I guess we could put Melinda Gates there too. Just those 3 families. Well, 4, excuse me. More wealth than 60% of all Americans. More wealth than half the world. The world is at 8 billion people. Those 4 control more wealth than 4 billion people in the entire world. Good for them, I guess. Is that sustainable? Interesting questions. Interesting questions. Well, what about the rest of us? 50% of American families. I call this working class now. Middle class is an interesting sociological term. What it used to mean back in the day, as I was growing up, that meant you could send your children to get a college education and not go into tremendous amounts of debt. Certainly the public school. You could pay off your house. You could have a couple of nice cars. You could have some vacations. You could have plan for a nice retirement. That's what middle class used to be. Right now we're all kind of working here. It's just very limited influence. We're working a lot, and we're funding a lot of lifestyle through consumer debt. And although these are nice to have, these credit cards, they do come at a price, my friends. They do come at a price. And of course, that's the toughest part right there. 40% of the families, everyone else, of American families, just have absolutely nothing, really. No access, no influence, no power. A lot of government assistance, and a hard time, getting the careers that they want. Very interesting. We've never seen this before, my friends. That's why I'm bringing it up. This is not the way the United States has rolled. Certainly after World War II, which we would consider modern day history, till about the late 90s, maybe even early 2000. The top 1% since that time, since 2000, 2001, owns more than the bottom 80% of American families. We've really never seen that in the history of this country, but we're seeing it today. Again, it's 24 trillion for 1%. And again, these numbers could be bigger because they increase every year, but the percentage is going to be the same. Yikes, yikes, yikes. Hey, the 1970s, the top 1, well, you need wealthy people here in the United States. That's the way a free enterprise system goes. And I'm a free enterprise person. I do believe in the capitalistic society. I don't like crony capitalism. That's just me, where I want people to be able to work hard and receive their rewards. But hey, we're looking this at a total academic area. Sustainability, the pandemics that we've gone through, the disasters, certainly as we came out of COVID-19, really put a spotlight on personal finance, didn't it? Who was able to work from home? And maybe you're working from home today. You had to have the good computer systems. You had to have the technology, the education behind that. You had to be able to buy online. You had to have all your finances ready to go through either Apple Pay. You had PayPal. You had Venmo. I mean, were all those platforms in place? For some people it were, but for many, many people it was not. Well, welfare states. This is interesting, and why I say it's interesting. There's California, the biggest state in population-wise. Of course, Texas and Florida and New York are right behind. These states, basically, more people get their funding from government programs than a private income. What's very interesting about these little states right in here, I shouldn't say little, I mean geographic they're pretty big, but those are called swing states. So in any election year, a federal election, a presidential election, you'll see the presidential candidates, whoever they might be, they will go to these states, Michigan and Wisconsin as well. They're just very independent states. These states they need a lot of government help, and the reason they're getting so much government help is because a swing state could go either right or left, Republican or Democrat. They will receive more private presidential grants. So the President of the United States, whoever that might be at any given time, has their own funding that they can write to states. They're called presidential grants. And these states get the most of anyone. You don't see a lot of campaigning. You see a lot of campaigning going right in these areas. It makes it very interesting. Makes it very interesting. My friends, the eradication of the middle class since the year 2000, which doesn't seem that long ago. 20 million bankruptcies. Again, it's a higher number now. It's a much higher number now. But hey, many bankruptcies were filed 25% under 27 years old. You're not a legal adult till 18. So what's happened there? That's not good. That's not good. Many home foreclosures that we saw in the aughts, in the teens, and now we're in the 20s. Yikes. A lot of wealth for most working Americans has just decreased. Is there a middle class anymore? We're working paycheck to paycheck, my friends. Since the year 2007, which to me seems yesterday, but it's hard to believe we're getting almost 20 years past that. The average typical American family has been spending 120% of their income. I mean, I could give up shopping, but I'm not a quitter. That seems to be our mantra. We have had, for many, many years, a negative savings rate. It's a little better now, but we do consume our GDP. We love to spend it. In fact, if we don't spend, then our economy does what? It could go down. American dream, my friends, has been fueled in the last 20 to 30 years of credit cards. 71% of Americans say that my financial goal is just to get out of debt. Are you a little upset? I am. Yeah. If you think the government's going to help us, good luck with that. That's all I can say. Because their answer is inflation, is putting out more money. And while it looks like the economy is growing, it's really not. And it's really hurting us, because when all our money goes to different areas, we don't have enough money to spend or invest or save and invest and spend it on good things. We must be willing to change our way of thinking about our finances, my friends. That's what I was trying to get to. My father always said, son, if you want to hurt somebody, people won't change until they get hit in the pocketbook, until their wallet starts shrinking. Then people will start changing. I think he's kind of right there. At least he was. Good old dad there. Personal finance. Are you going to control our money, or does it control us? 80 to 20%, maybe 90 to 10%. This does not require calculus. It's behavioral. I mean, we know what we should do. Payday. I mean, we shouldn't spend every dime we have on the first day we get it. Our relationship can either be positive or negative, and unfortunately for many Americans, about 70%, it's not a very positive relationship, and I want it to be. We do love payday. We work very hard. Don't let anyone say that the American worker has anything to do with being lazy, because we are the most productive employee in the world. Our output has doubled since the early aughts of 2000. We work very hard, and we should enjoy payday. Please enjoy it. But let's save some of these beautiful dollars. The great thing about saving, we get to spend it in the future. So the financial planning process, what is it? It's not that difficult to understand. We're just going to start utilizing it. It's managing our money, achieving our own personal economic satisfaction. The advantage is when we start telling our money what to do. We have an increased effectiveness in using and protecting our resources. We become intimate with our money, like, hey, I don't want anyone else to have it. I would say Definitely improving personal relationships. Unfortunately, for many marriages that end up in divorce, and there's many, many, many in the United States, almost 50% divorce rate. A very, if we were to look at the number one reasons, money always surfaces to the top. Again, so we can improve our relationships in life with better planning. And that sense of financial freedom, that's what I hope to set you on the path of financial freedom throughout this class, that you're telling your money what to do and you're saving and investing for different areas of your life. There are 6 steps in this process, and this is another question, I believe, that you would have on the online class, that is, on your project. Again, let's just rip off the Band-Aid. We determine our financial situation, where we are right now. Doesn't matter where it is, we just want to own up to it, own it, and then we want to start developing goals, courses of action, always have some alternatives. What are, again, it's the opportunity costs. Create and implement a financial plan, and then we'll review it. We said, did it do what we wanted to do? Let's look at that. So, step 1, determine our financial situation. Do I have an income? We'll evaluate that. All right, I have a job, great. I have some savings. I do have living expenses and debts. List those out. Right there, your assets and your debts. Let's just kind of see where our net worth is. Things that we own, and then we have to subtract what we owe on that. And then we start creating realistic financial goals on current income. You know, probably can't say I'm going to save $200,000 this year, but I may be able to say I want to save $2,000. That may be very doable for most Americans. Yeah, make it realistic. Step 2, all right, we've assessed our financial situation, we have a better idea. Develop our financial goals. Identify the feelings about money. You may have very negative feelings. Maybe, I mean, I will tell you personally, I saw my parents. Now, my parents were older. I was born very late in life. They were in their 40s. My dad did grow up through the Great Depression. He did fight in World War II. So they and my mom lived during the Depression as well. So they certainly had a whole different background of money. I mean, friends, they may have many conversations, and they said we had probably one good meal a day, and the rest we ate crackers. It was very tough. My mom said she never had, she wore her mother's clothes, and they always sewed them and mended and patched them up, and then she gave them down to her sisters. She said, I had 2 pairs of new shoes in 6 to 8 years. And I was when she was growing up. So yeah, they had a lot of different feelings about that. So they always wanted to save, and they hoarded as well. Now, you may have parents or grandparents in the baby boom generation, Generation X or millennial, that things have been pretty good, and they have different motivations for money. It feels good to spend money. So determine those feelings. Sources of the feelings. Again, they could be very negative because we may have been brought up that way, or just never seem to have enough. We want to be able to separate ourselves from the feelings of that money, so we can start making our goals that are specific to our situation. Now, we would say the course of action. What we definitely want to do in life would be to change the status quo. The status quo for 70% of Americans, unfortunately, is having no clue of where their money's going, watching inflation eat up their savings or their spending, and just existing. We want something different. We want to start saving something a little more. I want to expand my course of action. What if I could even add an extra $20 a week? Well, $20 a week, 20 times 50, that's an extra $1,000. And what if we put that into an investment account? There are so many great investment accounts between Acorns, Robinhood, etc., that we could start actually building and putting together some IRAs, some Roth IRAs, just by changing some habits that we might do. Again, I'm not saying to move a mountain. We want to change, as this yellow airplane, the status quo, and do something different. Yeah. There we go, right there. Change that current situation. So we'll talk about Acorns. It's an exchange-traded fund. There's also Robinhood, which you can micro-invest. There's some great apps you can do on your phone, and we build a habit that makes it very simple and easy to do. That's the way to build a habit. Make it simple, make it easy, make it rewarding. You can always say, hey, I'm going to have money in the future to spend. I don't need that brand new car right now in my 20s or my 30s. I'm going to start saving this up, and then when the time is right, I'll buy that car when I'm ready to. I mean, I'll buy a car, but I don't have a brand new Lexus GS 550 right now. Start investing that. Step 4, my friends. Okay, you've identified that courses of action. Maybe we have too many of these. All right, we need them. We need to build credit. Okay, we're going to take a new course of action. I'm going to pay that off, and then anything else, once I've paid this off, I go back in to my savings account. And hopefully, I'm going to show you the ways you can do that throughout this course. Then we evaluate. All right. Well, if I want something, I'm going to have to more than likely give up something or do something different. That's an opportunity cost. If we've taken economics, it's one of the foundations of economics. You make a choice, you got to give something else up to get something else. Trade-offs, basically. Okay, there we go. Right now, many of you are in college. Your time is very precious, and thankfully, this is also this could be a blended or an online course that I teach. I teach this course in many formats, so we have extra time. You have family with children. How can we work these things out? Again, if I want to save up for that car right now, that means I'm going to spend less somewhere else. Then, of course, we evaluate everything, the risks that we have. In finances, there's always risk and reward. Little risk means little reward. Bigger risk should mean a bigger reward. Okay? All sorts of different risks in here right now. We're seeing, I think we're going to see for some time, inflation, which means purchasing. When do I buy? Is it going to get more expensive? Is it going to get less expensive? My income, my career risks right in there. I want to evaluate that. If I have to, maybe I get that great new job in life, and congratulations, but it comes at a price where I'm working 80 hours a week, I'm traveling everywhere, little things in there, again, how we want to live that out, and also our personal decision in our risk. And now we have that action plan. All right, for a lot of us, it'll be completing this education, increasing savings, adopting a healthy lifestyle. I will talk about that throughout the course, and certainly as we look at your estate planning. Both of my parents I took care of, and on my wife's side as well, we were both the babies. We were both born to older parents, and our brothers and sisters have moved away. Maybe you're a caregiver as well, and again, my heart goes out to you because it's emotionally and financially draining. My parents did not adopt a healthy lifestyle, and they paid for it. Well, I guess I should say I paid for it too, much more than they did, but they were in nursing homes at the very end, and it depleted so much of their wealth, maybe almost all of it. So, healthy lifestyle, my friends, is a great part of your financial plan. It's a great part of your parents' financial plan. Reducing spending, starting my IRA, my individual retirement account, beginning the investment. There's also some great things that we can just look at right there as you're putting into your goal. And then again, you got to revise, review and revise. You'll find this in life. Many of you already have. You will only improve upon what you measure in life. I play golf. I hope some of you are able to play that too. It's one of the few sports you can play when you're over 40, and I'm just a little bit over 40. You got to measure your score. How did I do on this hole? Did I par it? Did I bogey it? Did I just blow up on it? How can I get better? How is my swing getting better? How can I get better at anything? Again, the one thing about finances is it is mathematical. So we can see I have more in my savings account than I did a month ago, a year ago. I'm beginning to plan. Yeah, if you measure it, you will improve upon it. If we never measure anything, then we will not improve. And we're going to improve our financial plan. We're going to look at now the influences on personal financial planning. So here we are in part 2 of my lecture series for you, my screen recording series for you. The influences on our personal financial plan. There's a lot of things, obviously, because if it were easy, everybody would be doing very, very well. Let's look at some of that. A life cycle, life changes. There's an adult life cycle. There's a life cycle for us all, my friends, depending on where you are. If you're just starting your your life, I think life begins after high school. All right, so your marital status, your household size and employment, that certainly has a lot of change to our finances. Major events, graduation, engagements, career changing, children, boy, that'll really suck the life out of your financial plan. Those of you who have children, not cheap at all, are they? Not cheap at all. And of course, just as you think you have your children raised, then you may have to do caregiving for older parents. It just happens, my friends. That's the way. Sometimes it's the hand that we're dealt, that we just have to get through it. So let's look at some of this, our life cycle. All right, there's a sunrise, there's adolescence, maturity, there's middle age, retirement, sunset. Throughout this, there's different risks levels. I believe it's been a really good quote. You know, when you begin college, when you begin your life, you're full of choices, you're full of optimisms, full of promise. At the end of your life, it becomes a result of all the choices that you made. I think Zig Ziglar had said this. A lot of positive speaking people have said this before. If you don't like your life, it's time to start making better choices. So again, we're full of potential, and then as we look back on the life as the sun is setting there, what choices did we make? Well, let's see what we can do financially, my friends. Yeah, economic factors. All right, surviving the rigged economy, the Federal Reserve, role in this economy. Those are some things that we want to look at. And of course, global catastrophes. COVID-19 was not the first global catastrophe, was it? We can look back on these odds. We went from 9/11. We went through recessions. We went through several outbreaks of viruses. This just happened to be, obviously, the worst one we've ever seen. What's next? I don't know, but more than likely, something could happen. Changing economic conditions. Again, consumer prices. We can't reiterate, when inflation is high, that means prices are high, and we're all kind of in a set income. Means we have to choose between what we're going to buy and what we're not going to buy. How much we spend, interest rates, these are all areas, my friends, as you throughout your career to look at. And it will tell you, again, the economic conditions of the United States. Are things going well? Are things going to a recession start? Path to some security in our finances. Can we plan for an emergency? Well, financially you can. And that is, emergencies are going to happen. We're going to talk about that, how to build an emergency fund, so we can start saving for that. Maybe things are going great right now. If you're a business, you would know that I used to have I was a minority owner of a landscape nursery, and I had my own landscape business as well before that. And I would know, hey, I would do great in the summertime. I mean, this was great. All right, let's buy a Lexus. Things are going well. But I also had to control myself to say, just because July and June, August were great months, I know that January, February, maybe even parts of December are not going to be that great. So I had to save money for those down times and get that Lexus. All right, reduce our debts, maintain a low level. Get a high credit score and maintain that. I'm going to show you how to do that. Systematically invest in the future. That's going to make it easy, my friends, if we can start doing things on a weekly basis. And of course, if we're in relationships, communicate that. If you're brand new here in the life of a college student, communicate that with your family members, your parents. Say, hey, mom and dad, aunt, uncle, grandparents, this is what I'm going to try to do. You may get some leverage from them. They may say, you know what, I like that idea. I'm going to help you. I'll contribute a little bit to you as well, as long as you're starting to do something different. We're not going out and just spending money. Many of my students have basically told me that. That's why I bring it up. That my grandparents now, they're helping me invest, it's helping my money go further as well. So, defining the timing, my friends. Time value of money. It really helps to do this soon as possible. We're going to look at goals here. Now, a goal could be, I want to be great. That's not a goal. It's a saying right there. Any goal that you ever have throughout your career, or that you bring to your boss or anyone else, or if you are the boss, someone brings, hey, this is the goals I want to complete this year, they need to be SMART, which means they need to be very specific, be able to measure it. Can you attain it? Is it relevant to what we're doing? And when will it be done? SMART. Real quickly here. A specific goal says this: what do I want to accomplish? What are the benefits? Who's involved? What are the requirements and constraints? So if I say I want to save money, since we're in a personal finance class, okay, at the end of 1 year you have $1 more in your account. Well, wow, that doesn't mean anything. Or in 10 years you saved, $1,000, and it really doesn't do anything. You want to be specific. I want to save an X amount of money. All right, so let's say I want to save $20,000. That's very specific. Let's see. You just got to be able to measure it. So how much? How many? How will I know when it's accomplished? Okay, when I have an extra $20,000 in my account. We're getting better. We need to keep fleshing this out. It's got to be attainable. Let's say it was $20,000 a year. That would be amazing. Unfortunately, unless you're in that top 10% or 5%, most Americans simply can't do that. I've met a few students who did it before. Very few, one or two. They lived at home, and like my daughter, and she's able to do it because she has no bills. It's got to be attainable. So when someone comes gives you a goal, can it be accomplished? Do I have the resources and abilities for completion? Well, let's take out a zero, my friends. Let's say $2,000. I think I said that before. $2,000, I mean $20,000, you got to save $1,700 a month. $2,000, I need to save actually $167 per month, maybe $40 a week. Hey, $40 a week times 50 weeks, there's 52 weeks in a year. We'll say there's 2,000. That could be very attainable for most of us. Is it relevant? Does it seem worthwhile? Does it match? Are you the right person to accomplish that goal? Well, we know saving money. If I save money now, I have money in the future to spend. Great. But when someone comes to you with their goals, make sure that they're not just trying to write through their career just to hang on. It's got to be good for the organization. Well, this is good for us. And time limited. There's the T right there. How will I know what it's accomplished? What could I do 6 months, 6 weeks from now? And what can I start doing today? That is a SMART goal. And when they all measure with that, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time limited, you've got a pretty good goal. You've got the start of a very good goal right there. And anyone who comes to you with a goal would too. So I hope that helps in our SMART goals. We're going to keep working on this one. Well, a goal to a financial plan. If I were working out in the workforce and I was done with college and I'm in, a relationship, got a partner, spouse, I'd say I would like at least $3,000 in an emergency fund. At least. This is just basic. I'd like to get most of my debts paid off. We're going to show you in the second unit how to do that with the debt snowball. And then I'd like to build a big emergency fund. $7,000, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000. We try to do 3 to 6 months of expenses. If I'm making $50,000 or less, I'm somewhere in this goal, right in here. If I'm making 50 or more, I want to go 10 to 15,000. Right now, that wouldn't be too bad. Debts are paid off. I have a house. I have a rent payment, maybe a little bit of a car, but most of my debts are very manageable now. My credit card debt's wiped out, and I got 10 to 15,000 in the bank for emergencies, just for emergencies. That'd be pretty nice. Now I can start investing in retirement. Maybe you have kids that could college fund, start funding there, and then start paying that home off a little earlier, which means putting some more payments into the house. And then I could build wealth. Now that came from Larry Burkett, and I'm sure you've heard of Dave Ramsey. Larry Burkett was before Dave Ramsey. Dave took most of things for Larry. Larry did pass on a few decades ago, but he had Christian financial concepts, and he made things very simple on this. Now we're in a college plan, so if I'm a college student here, what should I have? I'd say $2,000 in emergency fund, which you can always get to if the brakes go bad in the car, if I've got to buy extra books or supplies, maybe I've got to go to a dental appointment. Dentists are very expensive. I have money ready to go. My credit card debt's very low. All right, I'm going to utilize my debt snowball. I'm going to graduate. Great. And then if we've had to go into any student debt, then we're going to ruthlessly pay off those college loans. Okay, now that's in Unit 2. I have a specific formula for that. And then I'm going to proceed back to that bigger plan and really blow out my emergency fund. And then when I've got that nice and ready to go, I can start my investment world and move on from that. When we look at money, we have a few lessons here. It's very active. It's more than activity than it's ever had in the last 30, 40 years since the 1970s because inflation is so high. Small sacrifices in life can produce very big payoffs, and every decision involves a trade-off. We're starting now, my friends. So, the power of saving money. Billy is a friend of ours. He is 19 years old. He's going to save $2,000 a year at 12% interest until he's 26. $16,000 investment. He's going to stop investing, leave that money alone, and then he's going to go back and look at it at 65 years old. Maybe retirement there. That's nice. He stops though. He has a brother named Jimmy. Jimmy says, "Hey man, you know Billy, I mean we were twins, and you did good. I commend you. I'm 27. I'm going to do $2,000 a year at 12%. Found the same investment against mathematical equation until he's 65 years old, and he puts in $76,000. So he puts in more. It started a little bit later. The question is who was smarter. Now, they were both very smart and wise for doing it. But here's the interesting thing. Billy's investment at 65 is $2,288,000. Let's say 89 there on a $16,000 investment. But he did 2,000, started at 19. Let's say we had a margin of error of 50%. That's about as big as margin you could expect. I mean, you're not going to be 100%, but 50%. You'd take $1.1 million after $16,000 investment. Jimmy did well, $1.5 million, but he put in more. The thing was, he got some more doubles. Again, would you take, even at $76,000, would you take $750,000? Again, it's a mathematical equation. A lot of things can move around in interest rates, but the number is this. What happened here? It's the rule of 72. Big lesson that we always want to learn. You divide 72 by the interest rate that you get, and it's going to tell you how fast money can double. Let's say your grandparents, somebody gave you $1,000 one-time investment. No withdrawals, okay? You put it into an interest-bearing account or investment account at 25 years old and you took out at 60. If you made 6% a year, you would have, by the time you got 65 years old, 40 years later, you'd have $10,000. Every 12 years, 72 divided by 6 is 12. That money doubles every 12 years. Went from, at 12 years, went to 2,000, another 12 went to 4,000, another 12 went to 8,000, another 12. Well, actually, we got to 65 before then. Okay. If you had 12%, 72 divided by 12 is 6. Whoa, you have $93,000. You see what happens here? This is addition by multiplication, or we would call it geometric progression. That is huge. Every 6 years we're doubling. What? 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, and then again right up to 93 by the time we got to 65. If you had 18%, 72 divided by 18, 4 years, you'd have $750,000. The number is the same here, my friends. $1,000 one-time investment, no withdrawals for 40 years. The interest rate is 18%. If you had a number that did that great, that's huge. Now you're probably saying to yourself, well, I don't know where this guy's coming from because I don't know of any investment that makes 18%. Well, I bet you credit card companies do. I bet you lenders do, because right now credit card rates, 18% would be a pretty good rate. They're at 25 to 30% because, again, when inflation goes up, interest rates go up right with that, especially when you're paying it. So you want to start earning this amount of money? Let's wipe out all of our credit card debt. And now we can start spending in here. And again, there are ways we're going to have to get the high quality exchange traded funds, mutual funds, to start getting some of this rate right in here. We're going to look through that in this course. That's a great rule. Always understand the rule of 72. The very wealthiest people in the world know this rule very well, how fast money doubles. This may say, wow, this was a nice, safe investment. Well, when inflation rate's at 9%, you're losing money. It's not that safe. There's probably a lot more risk in here, but the reward was this. Interesting. The rule of 72, first law that we want to know of personal finance. So that's a wrap up of chapter 1, the introductory chapter, I believe, to this course. We're just going to flesh a lot more of this out, my friends. We're going to go in very deep detail. But I think you can see how important it is to start our planning of our personal finances. And no matter what age we are, if you're very young, great. If you are middle-aged, mature, it's still a time to do it. You can still get our family, our parents, getting this done now. So the time to start is now. We are going to look at another chapter, obviously, on career development, which is a big part of our personal finances. So I hope you enjoyed that. I think you can answer some of the questions for those of you in my online class that pertain to the financial planning process. I would encourage you, my friends, to read chapter 1 that we just went over from the textbook. Again, the textbook is one of the best for personal finances. I know we got that textbook as an ebook. It was part of the TCC Plus plan. And I believe for a small fee, you could have that. They'll drop ship you a shrink wrap copy, which you just put into a binder. If you can go online on eBay, Amazon, and find the book as well, I think you'd like it. It's one that you're going to use for a very long time. So, hope you enjoyed that chapter.